I picked this one famous quote out that I want to read to you. I don't know if you know. It's from C.S. Lewis. And I think it's a powerful quote and kind of drives this home. And it might be shocking because it's an old quote, but it's actually still up to date. Where men are forbidden to honor a king, they honor millionaires, athletes, or film stars instead, even famous prostitutes or gangsters. For spiritual nature, like bodily nature, will be served. Deny it food, and it will gobble poison. You ever heard that one before?
No, but it certainly is applicable.
I mean, and that's at least 100 years old, that quote, and it could have been written yesterday.
You know, there's a military piece of that kind of jumps to me. Where there is a void in leadership, there will be someone to step up and take over.
And I think the reason why I wanted to kind of, look at your statement from a reverse perspective, another book that I read a long, long time ago, which was a little bit dry, but also has some really interesting points. I don't know if you ever heard of the book I think it's called Guns, Germs, and Steel.
No.
It's a big, thick book. I read it during a vacation once, and it was kind of a treatise on how certain nations and certain populations became the dominant force, and they basically looked at the how civilization kind of spread out. And for example, the first recorded genocide was from the Maori who sailed west from New Zealand and found some island of poor or of farmers that didn't have a warrior class, and it was like they meeting the dodo bird. They were passive, and because they didn't protect themselves, they said, "Oh, what the heck? Let's just bash them over the head," because that was their culture, right? I don't want to judge it so much because I think every culture has gone through that experience. But one of the things that Guns, Germs, and Steel said, which kind of smacked me in the eyes, because I think one thing that government is actually there for is this kind of concept of justice and righteousness and creating a fair environment for everyone, which is not naturally given. If you leave society to itself, organized groups will, even if they're small, will dominate their neighborhood, their city, their government, their industry, the kind of this monopoly kind of thing, and oligarchs, what we've got going on now too. And one of the things this book, Guns, Germs, and Steel said, the overriding purpose of government is to be the biggest, baddest gang in the country. So the analogy they made, like I'm going to use some stereotypes here, so anybody who's Italian will forgive me. I have some Italian blood as well. Right. We'll say, it used to be, if you lived in an Italian neighborhood in the 40s, somebody might come by and say, hey, pay me protection. And there was kind of there was a neighborhood justice system, right? If you wanted, and it jumped out at me. He said, that's actually what the purpose of government is. The purpose of government is to create a fair playing ground for everyone so that nobody can take advantage of the others. And my personal impression is that anybody and everybody that weathers against government, organized government, I always kind of have the suspicion, why? Because is there some kind of group? Is there some kind of market that you would like to take advantage? Would you prefer not to pay taxes? Would you prefer to offshore your money to the Cayman Islands? Do you want to have a justice system that serves the rich? Which unfortunately most countries have that, whether they're democratic or not. I think that's the purpose of government. And if I were to extend that statement, I think one of the reasons why the average Joe and Mary does not feel very good about politicians is because they don't know the last time they've done anything for them.
Yes.
Maybe they don't see what they're doing for them, like public education, whatever form of healthcare they might have, Social Security.
Yeah. The ones that complain the most are also the ones that have no problem cashing that check. But I think that this also is an evolution that's occurred in the responsibility of the voter. I will say great things about Ronald Reagan being an excellent leader. He did one of the leadership things that I think true leaders do, which is lean forward.
Mm.
You have to be aggressive. You cannot be risk averse all the time. You have to monitor your risk, but you've got to lean forward. What he did to take us to the end of the Cold War was risky, but he was leaning forward. One of the things that I don't think he did well as a leader was he created or began this expansion of what I call meism. Under the Reagan years, there was a lot of talking about you, tax breaks for you, money in your pocket.
The trickle-down principle that never panned out.
Yeah, and this whole meism kind of thing really took off in the 80s, and it built, it continues to build now. And so you have people in the majority saying, can't even say Merry Christmas anymore. This kind of feeling of the George Costanza Festivus. I'm constantly being barraged. Poor me. When I think the reality is, if you go back and you think about it, it's the piece that's missing there in terms of people looking at their government, is that government is not there just to serve you. Government is there for a bigger purpose. It's there to give us that vision. It's there to give us that hope. It's there to bring you're hungry, you're poor. It has a lot of purpose.
It has kind of also a holistic purpose to say, hey, I'm sure you remember that with Jeff Bridges, that famous scene from that movie, where he's asked what makes America so great, and he initially doesn't want to answer the question. That's one of my favorite.
Yes.
And you know what's great about Jeff Bridges is a self-proclaimed Republican, not a modern Republican, so they might call him a rhino. But that whole dialogue, what do you mean? We're 27th in child mortality, and in 20, I don't know what the numbers were, 17th in literacy, and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yes, I remember that. Yeah, it's a great scene.